It has a chance to be a special season in Iowa City for Iowa football, and the new quarterback, Mark Gronowski, is a reason why. What he's doing in the offseason to hit the ground running for the Hawkeyes.
You are Locked On Hawkeyes, your daily podcast on the Iowa Hawkeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, welcome in. I'm Trent Condon, and this is the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. I've been covering the Hawkeyes for over 20 years on the radio here in the state of Iowa, including currently on the Iowa Sports Radio Network. You can hear me weekdays from noon to 2, stations in Des Moines, Sioux City, Iowa City, Cedar Rapids, and Quad Cities, talking the world of sports and plenty of Hawkeyes. Today's episode of the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast is brought to you by FanDuel. New customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Well, we were going to talk a little basketball today, including the possibility of the NCAA tournament increasing to 72 or even 76 teams, not just for the men's side of things, but also for the women's. And what a bad idea that is. Elliot Clough is going to join us as he was at Iowa football media availability today. We'll get his perspective on that. In fact, that's where we're going to start the conversation today. A look at media day, the media availability from today, and what we heard from some of the players, and some new names maybe kind of flying under the radar that I think we should get comfortable with and start to learn a little bit more. But I'm going to start the conversation with the most important position in sports. And of course, that is the quarterback position. After just what a dreadful, woeful 5 years it's been at the quarterback spot for Iowa football, an opportunity now to change the narrative, to flip the script on what Iowa football is, the national punchline of offense. I mean, you're watching the John Deere Classic and they're poking fun at things. You know that this has maybe taken it to another stratosphere. We had 2 years ago the drive for 325, trying to average 25 points a game and to maintain the status of Brian Ferentz as the offensive coordinator, and they came up just terribly short of that goal that season. There's been so much there, but we saw, of course, glimpses a year ago of them turning the page. It was the offensive line improvement. It was the running game improvement. Caleb Johnson had a lot to do with it, but it was also how well George Barnett had that offensive line playing, and also coordinating an offense with Tim Lester and doing the things that your players are good at, not trying to shove a square peg into a round hole, but instead playing to your guys' strengths. And I think you saw a lot of that a season ago. But as we look back to Mark Gronowski, coming in from South Dakota State after an incredible career there, Walter Payton Award winner, national champion, accolades, huge numbers, everything. It's a step up. We've also seen guys take steps up from the FCS level and be able to play at an incredibly elite level. And I think Mark Gronowski has a chance to do that. He's coming off the surgery. But one thing that I continue to love about this is we heard today about a couple of trips that he took. And we talked about one of them last week, or a couple of weeks ago now, I guess it was, when they went down to Texas and worked with Jake Christensen's father, Jeff Christensen, an NFL quarterback. You remember Jake in the late aughts? Things didn't go very well for him. Jeff said he'll be back rooting for Iowa football. Gronowski mentioned that afterwards. But Jeff Christensen's a guy that's worked with a ton of quarterbacks and has done an incredibly good job with high-level quarterbacks and what he's doing developmentally. And for Gronowski to go down there, but not only do that, but bring a number of his wide receivers there, not for sun and fun on the beach, but to get work done. And I'm sure there was fun that is going to be had. But it goes to the leadership quality. Another story that he had, Gronowski mentioned that he took the offensive line. They went as a group down to the Ozarks, and I'm sure had a very good time doing that. But the team building. Now, that's not to say that Cade McNamara didn't do that, because he did. And it would be unfair to say that he didn't do that. But my takeaway always with Cade McNamara is there was bravado. There was definitely a level of a guy that believed in himself. Arrogance, cockiness, those kind of qualities, which can be good in a quarterback, but you have to be able to back it up. And we saw from Cade McNamara, he wasn't able to be backed up. He couldn't back it up on that level, either physically in terms of the injuries or physically in terms of making all the throws. And they go hand in hand. But we saw a guy, I think, that had some false bravado. That's the way that he was wired, but he wasn't able to back it up. Mark Gronowski's proven that he can back it up. And though not at the Big Ten level, I think that is not going to be a concern for him. He's back working. He's at 100% physically, but doing those kind of things and indoctrinating yourself into the team concept, inside the team program I think is a huge, huge step forward of what they're going to be. But Cade McNamara quit on his team. Say whatever you want about it. There is no doubt in my mind. My belief is he quit. He didn't get what he wanted. He wasn't starting anymore, and he quit on his team. That says a lot about your quarterback and your leader. That's my takeaway. I don't believe we have to have that kind of concern with Mark Gronowski. He's wired differently. He's wired like one of us. He's wired as a Hawkeye. And though he's only been here for a couple of short months, he has those kind of qualities. A couple other things. Hear from Jacob Gill, always a good quote, guy that comes in a year ago from Northwestern, didn't have a ton of success there and put together the season, even with the issues that Iowa had at the quarterback spot a year ago, says this is a dependable, solid, competent Big Ten receiver. That's not something Iowa's been able to say very often either. But then you go into the depth that Iowa football has. And one of the guys, KJ Parker, continues to come up. And we're going to talk a little bit more with Elliot about him going forward and what kind of role he's going to have this season. But when I think of KJ Parker, we heard about him last year before the season began. His name came up a couple of times in August, right? Filed that one away. He was out there doing a great job. And we heard when scout team kind of conversations come up, who's turning some heads? And the name that I continue to hear was KJ Parker. So here he is now as a redshirt freshman. And there's a ton of wide receivers now in that room. Jacob Gill, Reese Vanderzee, Seth Anderson, stay healthy. They want to get Caden Weechin more involved this season. Sam Phillips, the transfer coming in from Chattanooga. And you throw KJ Parker into that mix, it continues to sound like it's going to be difficult to keep him off the field. Not that he's going to be playing 60 snaps a game, but there's going to be a role for KJ Parker. That is an exciting element because it's not about just the veterans, Gill, Anderson, Phillips, but it's also now about some youth and building up continuity in the passing game, in the wide receiver position, something that they haven't been able to do. A couple other things and a couple other takeaways. A Jennings dunker. The mullet is absolutely luxurious. I mean, that thing is a thing of beauty. Talk about a football guy. There's a football guy there. The big red locks flowing out of the back of the helmet. I can't wait to see him out there. The most important part, though, is him coming off the injury. Had ankle surgery back during the spring. We heard about that. We talked about that there. Because if this offensive line is going to click, Jennings Dunker, I believe, is going to have to play again at an all Big Ten level and maybe an all-American level. Cade Pieper is going to be next to him, likely at the right guard position. And with Pieper, he's a guy that continues to build himself up, but he's still very young. But when you're on each side of you, Logan Jones at the center spot, Jennings Dunker at the right tackle spot, you know you're in good shape. And then finally left tackle. And we'll talk also about that going forward on that front and what that's going to look like and who's ultimately going to win the job. We'll pose that one to Elliot. What else from Media Day took away? I think the quarterback spot was a big one. Hearing from KJ Parker, that one just kind of opened my eyes. A lot of good things coming out. We'll continue to keep you up to date. Got a couple other nuggets we'll continue to pass along here on Locked On Hawkeyes. We are your daily Iowa Hawkeye podcast, your team every day. That's what we do here, talking Hawkeyes all across the Locked On network. I got you covered on the Hawkeye side, whatever your favorite team is. Big thank you to everydayers with us each and every day. And of course, you can follow along with us by hitting subscribe if you're watching us on YouTube, or you can give us a 5-star review on the audio side. Really helps out what we do each and every day. Let's get into our conversation with Elliot Clough. He was at media availability earlier today. Some takeaways from Elliot as we talk more Iowa football, counting down the season here in July as we are 2 weeks away from Big Ten football media days. Excited for that one. Back with Elliot Clough talking Iowa football and who is the betting favorite to be the starting left tackle for the Iowa Hawkeyes. We'll do that next on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Summer sports are in full swing. Whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You've already following along with the action. Why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. I've been using FanDuel to track my favorite matchups. The app keeps it fresh with new daily promotions and fun ways to bet. It's easy to use, fast to pay out, and makes irregular season games feel like must-watch events. Whether I'm placing a same-game parlay or watching a bet ride into the ninth inning, FanDuel makes it feel like I'm part of the action. New to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Bet $5, get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com.
Elliot Cleff, he was out of work for a couple of days. Not long, as he found a spot back as he should have at HawkeyeInsider.com. Does a great job covering Iowa, and he joins us to recap the football availability from earlier this morning. Elliot, congrats on the new gig. Glad that you're still on the Hawkeye beat. And how are you, sir? Trent and Ken.
I'm good, guys. Thanks for the shout there. I know I appeared right when around that time I got the news, and you guys, said some good words about, the work that I put in and stuff like that. So I really appreciate it. As always, happy to be back on and talking Hawks.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a two-way street here. We're grateful for what you guys and everybody in the Hawkeye beat does that join not only our show, but all of them here at KXNO. So Mark Gronowski met the media today. Certainly sounds like a confident young man. I'm not a young man, confident quarterback as he is. The Manning passing camp went very well. All systems go. Was that your take listening to QB1 earlier today?
Yep. He's telling the media that he's 100% healthy and that he's 100% comfortable in Tim Lester's offense. That was one of the main draws for him to come to Iowa, too, was the Shanahan style offense. Learn a little bit more about how they run things in the NFL. And that's where he wants to be. And he's gone, obviously, to the Manning Passing Academy, as well as went to Dallas with a couple of his teammates to work with Jeff Christensen, who's an NFL quarterbacks coach, as well as went on a trip to the Ozarks with some of the offensive linemen. So he's starting to get to know the guys. He's getting integrated with the offense and feeling comfortable and confident with where he's at. Sounds like all systems go. Being hurt is obviously not ideal for the spring, but sounds like he's comfortable with the offense. He's continuing to learn. He's continuing to get confident and feels good about where things are at.
KJ Parker is a guy that keeps kind of getting that buzz. So he's available today. I think that says something at the wide receiver position. If they're going to put him out there, it's not for him to play 15 snaps this year. It is a deep room, something that isn't always the case at wide receiver. No, redshirt freshman. Yeah, he maintained it a year ago. Awesome. We heard it last year. Now we've been hearing it throughout the spring and the summer. How big of a piece is KJ Parker going to be to this offense?
Man, that's a really good question. That wide receiver group, dare I say, it's deep this year for Iowa. They've got probably 7-8 guys that have either had time or on the field in general in college football, but also in black and gold, but also guys that probably deserve to see some time on the field, like KJ Parker. You can't forget they added Sam Phillips from Chattanooga. You're going down the list of guys from last season, and Jarriett Bowie and Dayton Howard and Seth Anderson and Jacob Gill, right? So, and you got to throw Caden Weegan into that group too, even though he's known for being a returner. So I got to know KJ a little bit during his recruitment. The sentiment around him is kind of how did he end up at Iowa? How was Iowa the only Power 4 school that was really still involved late in his recruitment? And actually, Iowa initially wanted him as a safety before they flipped recruiting him as a wide receiver. But yeah, I've been told by multiple people that he's got phenomenal ball skills and that he just continues to wow folks in practice. So he's going to see the field this year. To what degree and how many snaps, how many catches, all that stuff in terms of the numbers, that's going to be up in the air. We'll probably learn more at Kids Day, but everything I've heard from behind the scenes is that he's standing out and at the same time fitting in with that talented group of receivers.
Well, when it comes to the running back position, how's this going to shake out? Because it didn't seem like this time last year, as we think back, Caleb Johnson wasn't necessarily going to be the guy. It turned out he was more than the guy. He was unbelievable. Patterson, Moulton, there's a lot of love for Washington. Trent, your guy, Dawes, maybe in the mix. A lot of running backs to divvy up the carries. How is it going to work out?
Well, don't forget Xavier Williams and Nathan McNeil either. Those are two guys that I've heard some good things about. It's definitely going to be running back by committee. But the three lead guys of that group of six will be TJ Washington, Jazz Patterson, and Kamari Moulton. Kamari Moulton, the headliner probably of that group, I think they all have skill sets that really complement each other well. Kamari's more of that every down back. TJ is like a third down back that's really dynamic out of the backfield, can probably return punts, kicks this year. He might be returning kicks next to Caden Weegan by the sounds of it. But and then Jazz Patterson, of course, a hard hitter. Xavier Williams, really tough to tackle. Brevin Dahl, a speedster, your guy, Trent, state champ in track. And then Nathan McNeil, I think I told you guys this earlier, but earlier in the year, but I had a source describe him to me as lightning in a bottle. So he's a guy that's really fun and enrolled early, came up from Florida. Like Liddell Betts loved those Florida running backs. So came up from there, and I'd expect him to contribute one way or another this year. If you can save it, if you can give him a red shirt, awesome. But this group is loaded, and it wouldn't surprise me if Omar Young goes to any of them at any given time.
Jennings Dunker back for a right tackle, one of the better right tackles you're going to find in college football, but is coming off that surgery on his ankle this spring. Did he say today kind of where he is in his rehab coming back and the anticipation of when he's going to be full go with the team?
He did say that. He said he's about a week out from being 100%.
Okay.
So to me, I would assume that would mean he's getting back to full participation and he'll be a full go for camp. So that's definitely a win. Of course, the offensive line, he's an anchor of it. Logan Jones, Bo Stevens coming back, right guard with Cade Pieper, who's playing left tackle between Bryce George, Trevor Lauk, and Jack Doetzler. But Jennings is sounding like he's going to be good to go, and he's probably going to be in line for some all-conference honors, maybe some All-America honors this year.
If you had to handicap, if we go to the Clough Casino, who would be the betting favorite right now to be the starting left tackle out of the three guys that you mentioned?
Man, that's a really good question. My favorite, just as to where things are at currently, would probably be Trevor Lauk, out of Indianapolis, 4-star prospect that probably could have been guard, could have been tackle at this next level. He's a guy that's a year younger than Jack Doetzler, so probably a little bit more potential there. Been playing left tackle since he's been at Iowa, whereas Bryce George, it's like, I think I heard some analogy, and I don't think this is right, but from what I've heard, flipping from right tackle to left tackle is like trying to pitch with your left hand when you're right-handed. Mm-hmm. It's just not an easy transition. So from the things I'm hearing, it's sounding like it's going to be Lauk and Jack Doetzler. Could be a backup for left tackle, could be a backup for right tackle. He was getting those right tackle reps in the spring with Jennings out, so or some of them anyway. I know he did at the Kids Day practice, but to me, it's the betting favorite's Lauk. But I mean, that could change through camp, right? Bryce George played a lot of football, so if he can figure it out and he gets rolling, then very well could be George.
Back to spring camp and speaking of getting reps when the starter was out, I liked what I saw, at least on video, of Hank Brown. He's not going to be a starter. He shouldn't be a starter. Gronowski's clearly QB1. But is Hank Brown, without a doubt, the next man up if indeed you do get to that point? After all, it is a contact sport.
Yeah. He's got to be, right? I mean, we saw Jackson Stratton win 2 games, almost pull off that comeback against UCLA.
Great story.
He's a walk-on.
Yep.
Yeah, great story, but he's a walk-on. Been in the system for a year-ish now. He's actually the longest tenured Iowa quarterback now. Fun fact.
Wow.
After Tim Lester completely did a reboot of that room. But then you look at Jeremy Hecklinski as the third spot as well. He might be competing with Stratton there, depending on how that first year of college football helped him out at Wake Forest under Warren Ruggiero. But yeah, it's got to be Hank after some starting experience in the SEC. And he's really coming along. I've heard that, like Gronowski, he's gotten a lot more comfortable in the offense, really starting to be able to command things there under center for the second team.
Couple weeks away, Big Ten football media days. Iowa will go on that Thursday. Ethan Herkett, local kid from the corridor, makes sense. Logan Jones, of course, coming back, All-American candidate at center. And then Cohen Entringer, who started 1 game in his career. Boy, that's a rarity for somebody like that to be making their way to media days. What was your takeaway and just what people say about Cohen Entringer?
Yeah, well, I don't know if you guys probably know this, but player council determines who goes to media days. So I think that's pretty telling of what his teammates think of him. Mm-hmm. I think, he may not have started more than one game, but he's definitely had his impact. Of course, we all remember the Big Ten championship and chasing down the guy and the punt return. I think that's indicative of his effort. 1, 2, I mean, he might be one of the more, if not the most versatile defensive backs that the Hawkeyes have this year. And he's a hard hitter. And I mean, you'd like him in coverage. He could play strong safety or cash this coming year between he and Zach Lutmer. I'd probably put Lutmer at cash and Entringer at strong safety at this point. But he's going to be something this year. He could be a breakout year. I mean, if there were any of these guys that could be NFL eligible that have potential to jump into that echelon, I think Cohen Entringer is right there. I'm a really big Cohen Entringer guy. From Michigan, was offered by the Wolverines late, decided to stick with Iowa. And he's a great quote too. Like, I saw he was on the list to go to Big Ten Media Days, and like, yes, we got a good one. So I'm a big Cohen Entringer fan. The way he returned from that ACL injury in the end of not this season but the season prior, and ends up back for fall camp. I mean, I'm really impressed with what he's able to do. His range, his ability to hit. It wouldn't surprise me if he stacks up a few picks this year either.
Elliot Cleff, HawkeyeInsider.com, part of 24/7 Sports. They got better when they brought you aboard, and they were good in the first place. So, Elliot, thanks for doing this. Appreciate it, and we'll talk to you down the road, Elliot. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Yep, good to talk to you. Elliot Cleff as we check in on the Hawks.
Thanks, Elliot, as always, for joining us. Great stuff over there. Elliot Clough, now part of Hawkeye Insider. That's 24/7 Sports. Sean Bach, David Eichholt also over there doing a great job of pumping out the content and keeping us all informed as we get closer and closer to Iowa football. Want to wrap things up with some basketball talk and more big picture. The possible expansion of the NCAA tournament, how this pertains to Iowa. Good news, bad news. It looks like it's happening. We'll talk about that next. Locked On Hawkeyes. Trent Condon back with you one final time on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Thanks for being with us and making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. Thanks to you everydayers with us each and every day. Hit subscribe if you're watching me on YouTube, or if you're listening on the podcast side. 5-star reviews helps us get in front of more Hawkeye fans. So if you've been a long-time listener or even a short-time listener, I'm sure you know college basketball is my first love. There is something about Iowa basketball for me, somebody now in my mid-40s, growing up in the 80s, where Iowa basketball was it. It was number one, more than Iowa football, more than anything else. It was about Iowa basketball. Probably a big part of that is because all the games were on. There wasn't a whole lot of availability. Didn't have cable until I was in high school, so it was 3 channels. During the course of the week, outside of Monday Night Football, about the only time to watch live sports was Iowa basketball. And because of that, my love of college basketball as a whole definitely grew. Now, I also grew up in a golden age of Iowa basketball. My earliest memories are George Raveling's final team, and then Dr. Tom's first season, where they got up to number 1 in the country, played in the Elite Eight, and unfortunately it's been kind of downhill from there. But I love college basketball, and it doesn't have to just be the Hawkeyes. I care about this sport. And for the last half decade, we've heard the continued push, starting with Greg Sankey of the SEC, of expanding the NCAA tournament from the current 68-team structure, moving up to 72, 76. They even floated out there for a while, going to 96 teams, which would be dreadful. But that aside, it's a terrible idea in general, I think, for the sport. It's something that, in the grand scheme of things, I don't think is going to be a positive development for a sport that continues to dwindle down in the national consciousness. But that aside, the 64-team bracket is special. And once we get past the opening round, even though Iowa played there against Tennessee, 12 years back, those first round games, that Thursday and Friday, just the part of Americana, it's starting to warm up. Sometimes you get good weather, sometimes you get bad here at Iowa, but you know, spring's around the corner. We know it's going to be warming up, and you have this kind of cap of the season that is incredible. One and done, upsets galore. It's amazing. Now, it's more amazing when I was involved, and it makes it just another level and another layer to it. Now, that's a good thing for Iowa, because we can hear the powers that be in the NCAA say it's about giving more access to the little guy, to the Missouri Valley, to those Missouri Valley teams that go 28-6 and are left out of the NCAA tournament, but it's not. It's more about a consolidation of power. The power structure that has changed now with no more Pac-12. It's about giving more ability for teams that go 19-15 in the SEC and the Big Ten to get into the tournament and keep those coaches' jobs. It's not a good thing for the sport, but it is a good thing for Iowa. In this new structure of the Big Ten, as we know, Iowa's not going to be able to compete financially with Indiana basketball. They live at a different level, as does Michigan and Ohio State. And though those are not the same kind of basketball programs as their football programs are, they spend at a different level. When you look around at Illinois and other basketball programs and the West Coast schools and on and on and on, Iowa to compete is going to have to do it a different way. And if there is more access to the NCAA tournament, really, that's a good thing. Now, 68, 72, or 76 teams this year, and it won't be for this season. I don't think it matters. I think Iowa's going to be an NCAA tournament team this season. But overall, more opportunities just to get in. And anything can happen when you get in. There's this Iowa basketball stat that you have to go back, over 30-some years, the last time that Iowa, at any round of the NCAA tournament that they were playing in, that they didn't face a team that got upset the previous round. They have played the highest seeded team that they possibly can at each round of the tournament for something like the past, 16, 17 NCAA tournament appearances. That's not the case for everybody where else. And, we see cross state at Iowa State, and they get Arkansas Little Rock in the second round game. Iowa has not had that opportunity happen to them, but you get in, you just keep rolling those dice. Look, I'm a craps player, and you just keep rolling them, right? And sometimes you're going to hit that number. And sometimes you keep getting in there and you keep rolling the dice, it's going to hit. And it's going to happen for Iowa eventually. We're not going to go throughout the next 15, 20 years without a Sweet 16 appearance. It's not going to happen. I believe in Ben McCollum. I believe in this program. You just keep going. Iowa's in good shape. They got the right guy. But in those years that they do take a step back, to still be able to qualify and roll those dice one more time, it's not a bad thing for Iowa basketball. Thanks for being with us and making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. For your second listen, make sure you check out the Portal Show with Brian Smith. He's got the latest rumors, portal entries, recruiting updates, and signings. Be the most informed fan on the rapid changes to the college football landscape with the Portal. You can find the Portal on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Tomorrow's the day we will be talking about EA Sports, the release of College Football 26, the Iowa football player rankings. We got some other things going on, including our guy Spencer McLaughlin. If you watch last week or listen to our crossover episode previewing Iowa, Oregon, well, he has put together his top 18 in the Big Ten. Where are the Hawkeyes in Spencer's eyes? We'll talk about that also coming up tomorrow. Your team every day here on the Locked On Network. I got you covered on the Hawkeye front. And thanks to all of you for being out there and being with us each and every day. We'll talk to you again tomorrow. Until then, go Hawks.